Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we give this time to you. I ask for your help as the teacher that you would speak through me, Lord, that the lessons that need to be learned would be learned. We'd learn more about you, Jesus, what it is you've accomplished, why it is that you're worthy. Lord, allow me as the teacher to be supernaturally empowered in a way to explain these things that bring to life. Allow me to remember the things that I have studied, Lord, and explain them to me in a way, Lord, that are even fresh to me. Allow those that are here, Lord, just to be illuminated by the Spirit. Understanding this is our time to grow. This is our biggest time of worship. This is when we take seriously the authority of your word and hear what it is that you have to say to us as your people. Amen. Help us now, Jesus. Help us, Holy Spirit. For your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, like I said, because of what happened earlier and all the Southern Baptist garbage, we are actually just going to kind of cut some introduction out, and I really felt led that we need to look at Scripture today. We need to get back to that, because that is so important for us. So we're going to be in two places today. We're going to be in John 8, then we're going to be in Exodus 13 and 14. And the reason why is because this is another background section to John 8. You're going to see a lot of Old Testament. You actually saw a lot of Old Testament and a lot of John, but I've just recently really felt more led to bring this out because I do believe that it brings home some ideas that either you don't know, you need reminding of, or become fresh to you in a new way. Okay? And I love last week, a lot of people said they like the Old Testament. They like going back over it. Let them see Jesus in a fresh new light. I really didn't want to go back to the Old Testament again this week, but after arguing with God, you always lose. As Brother Malcolm always says, you're arguing too short to box with God. He's got you on this one, okay? So you submit. And so, okay, Lord, I submit. So we are going to go on John 8, and we're going to go to Exodus 13 and 14. We have a lot of reading, so I will cut out some introduction. I did want to say one thing. Because we're at the Feast of Booths, and we're going to see the light of the world today, and that does go back to the pillar of fire, pillar cloud. It's going to be one thing. And then we're going to see the freedom verses today that talk about your redemption. So we're going to go back to the Old Testament place that pictures your redemption and freedom more than anything else. Anybody guess what that is? The Exodus itself, when they boogie on out of the land and cross the what? Technically it's going to be what? Not the Red Sea, but the Reed Sea. We will see that more today. Okay? In the meantime, one section I took out, I want to make sure it's clear. The pre-incarnate Jesus is going to more than likely be identified as the angel of the Lord, or angel of Yahweh. Now I want to make it very clear. This is not saying he's an angel. There's a heresy out there that says that. When the term Malach is used in the Hebrew, it's angelos in the Greek, that is going to be speaking, this is his functional role. This means he's acting like a messenger, he's carrying out a task, he's doing something like that. This is not his ontological quality, which is the makeup he has. He is the second person of the Trinity. He always has been, he always will be. When we see him moving in the Old Testament under the title Angel of the Lord, just know we are not calling him an angel in the Michael Gabriel sense. We are simply looking at him carrying out an activity, and this is the terminology that Scripture chose to use, that God himself chose to use. So when we say that, don't get it confused. There are some groups who do teach he was an angel. They are heretics. He's not an angel like Gabriel or Michael, okay? He is the Lord of hosts, which means he is the general captain and ruler over all the angels. He can tell Michael and Gabriel what to do, and he's the most powerful spiritual warrior to ever walk the planet. Remember when he is in the Garden of Gethsemane and Peter, brave old Peter, breaks out a sword and cuts off the ear of the guy, and Jesus says, what? Peter, man, I can call down a bunch of angels, man. What he's saying is he's the Lord of hosts. And this angel of Yahweh plays that Lord of hosts role nicely, okay? Keep all that in mind. That's where we're going with this. So we'll go ahead and get started. What we're going to do is, a lot of this in John 8 we've previously seen or I've explained to you. So in order to be a time saver, what we're going to do, we're going to read John 8:12, and then we're going to scoot down to John 8:30 after I've explained some of John 8:12 to you. And the reason why this is going to be these two parts we're going to see come to life in the Old Testament today. The pillar cloud fire thing, okay, which is going to be represented by Jesus, and the freedom from slavery thing, which is your redemption. Okay? Both of these are the New Testament texts that are brought out in the Old Testament there. So go ahead and start reading for us John 8:12. Jacynda, read that for us.
Again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life.
Okay. Notice it starts with again. Again. Okay, you see that? That's always going to mean something. This is connecting John 8:12 forward, back to John 7, putting us back at the Feast of what? Booths, which is what? The Bluegrass Festival. So we're still at the Bluegrass Festival, okay? That again is reaching back and letting you know that we're still at the Bluegrass Festival, which is actually going to have meaning to the light here, Because remember the Feast of Booths, the Feast of Tabernacles, the candle lighting ceremony. He's playing off of that to explain this as well. And he says right here, Jesus spoke and said, I am the light of the world. What is I am in the Greek? I've told you before. Does anybody
Ego
remember?
on me.
Ego, I me. Everybody say ego, I me.
Ego, I me.
Just let go of my ego. You'll remember, okay? That's one way to do it. There's literally a parsing thing where you say, let go of my ego. That's literally how you parse. But ego, I me. That's what it is. This is a Johannian statement, which is another way to say stuff John writes, that is meant to show who Jesus is and what Jesus came to do. And when we say who Jesus is, we mentioned this last week, I am refers to what? Yeah, he's God. It refers to his divine nature. And then whatever's attached after that is going to give you some information about what he came to do and his role in salvation as the true source of salvation. Now, taken as a whole in John, there are 7 I am statements. Pop quiz, anybody want to name them? Okay, that's okay. I'll give it to you here. Starts out with what? John 6 has already seen it. I am the what? Bread of life. You take it in like faith. We know that one. That's John 6. Here, this is I am what? The light of the world. That's another one. John 10 is going to be, I am the door. Then he's, I am the good shepherd. Another place in John 10. I am the resurrection and the life. John 11. I am the way, the truth, and the life. John 14. I am the vine. John 15. Now remember, these are metaphors. They aren't literal. Zwingli and Luther got in a big argument about this, and we will one day talk about that because it is entertaining back in the history. But they are metaphors, and they're explaining you certain truths in Christology to have a better understanding of the God you serve. This all makes sense. And now we've got the second I am statement. I am the light of the world. Now, does anybody know one of the most common features of light in the ancient world? When you said light, it brought to mind one thing. As a matter of fact, I know there's probably only 2 people that will get this, but Dragon Ball Z, anybody sitting here knows that. When they go Super Saiyan, there's this aura around them, okay? Well, that's how it was in the ancient world. This aura or light was around them, and it depicted deity. So right off the bat, we're getting a deity picture, since my 2 TVZ people over here got that. No one else gets it. All right, well, my wife as well. Okay, so we're going to have deity right here, okay? And not only this whole light business is going to identify Jesus as the one who reveals, guides, and is needed for life, okay? He is needed, and we'll say it this way, he is the one who reveals who God is. Think about when you got light. What does light do? It shines and it shows you what's there. Okay? So he's going to reveal. Yes, he's going to reveal who God is. And think about this. When you're at night and you need to go somewhere, light is showing you how to get there as well. So it's going to reveal who God is and how to get to God. It's going to talk about God's great self-disclosure. Light is also going to guide you out of sin and out of darkness. Think you're in darkness, you can't see what you need. You need light. And what light is going to do is going to illuminate and show you where you're at when it comes to sin. It's going to show you that, then it's going to lead you out of the sin. Light is also needed when you're thinking of plants. Think of agriculture. How much do plants grow, most plants, without the sun? I know Gene knows a lot about plants. Not many plants grow without the sun. Well, as much as plants need light to grow and have life, you need Jesus to have spiritual and resurrection life. It's like oxygen. And this is what he's saying right here, okay? In addition to this, in Jewish thinking, light is going to be connected to God's presence. Think about Jesus. How do you get to God's presence? Through Jesus. Light is going to be connected to God's instruction in Jewish thinking. How do you get God's instructions? You're enlightened by Jesus. And light is connected to the messianic hope, connected to the eschatological old age. And who is the Messiah? Jesus. He is saying all this with these pithy, short statements. Okay? It's saying a lot with a little. And that's why he does it. He's just, God can do that. He's amazing like that, okay? Now, all this light of the world business, what he's moving towards after he says, I am the light of the world, he goes on to say, what? Whoever follows me will what? Not walk in darkness. Now remember, there's not a really good Greek word for whoever. There's not, really not. But this is going to carry the idea of the one who continually follows Jesus in an ongoing manner, okay? Someone who's a wholehearted disciple and not just a casual acquaintance, okay? Someone who doesn't look at Jesus as a microwave Sunday morning, but looks at him as an all-week crock pot. Look at it that way, okay? All you ladies know about that. I'm sorry, I don't like the microwave doesn't work over there, and we don't use a microwave anyway, so we don't care. But we use a crock pot. You know why? Food tastes better in the crock pot. But you know what? For it to taste good, it's got to what? It's got to cook long. It's got to stay in. It's got to get in there, okay? This is what Jesus is saying. You got to get in there. Once you get in there with him, and you're a wholehearted disciple, and not just a Sunday morning acquaintance, then what he's saying with this is, you will not walk in darkness, or you'll be delivered from the realm of rebellion against God. The realm of Satan, and the cosmos. What? This world. You'll be delivered from that, and you have a light of life, which means you will undergo a permanent transformation because of your relationship with Jesus. And then we talk about the fruit of the Spirit. You're changing. You're becoming different. You have a new outlook on life, a different worldview, a new meaning. You understand it's not about you in this world, and if you don't, then you're not saved to begin with, and that's Jesus is saying right here. Keep all that in mind. Now, verse 30 through 32. Read that for us. That's scroll on down to verse 30 through 32, the rest of y'all.
As he was saying these things, many believed in him. So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, "If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Well,
the first thing we got to explain is this believed. Because every time John uses believe, he doesn't mean it in the Christian sense. This becomes more obvious in the Greek. Okay? In the Greek, anytime it's talking about salvation, it's ongoing. It keeps, it maintains, it goes. When it's in the Greek and it just stops, it's like right here. It's not legit. And this is what he's saying. This is not legitimate belief, okay? Here's what he's saying. Although it appears, and this is where people, if you just know English, gets confusing, it appears to me he's saying they believe. This is not necessarily people who have genuine commitment to Jesus. These are more along the lines of people who have an initial assent, an agreement with his teachings, a momentary, superficial, short-lived belief that is not true faith. They walk down that aisle, and they're gone in a couple of weeks. They've lost that enthusiasm. They got washed up. They were all fire in the holy bathtub, but had something bad happen, and I tried it, didn't work. It's those people, okay? They claimed to have commitment, but they had no real commitment. It's those people. It's what we're being warned of. It's the same people in John 2. Read John 2 for us.
Many believed in his name when they saw the signs that he was doing. But Jesus, on his part, did not entrust himself to them because he knew all people and knew what was in man.
Okay, what does he say? They believed in Jesus, but Jesus didn't believe in them. Exact same Greek term. And Jesus didn't believe in them. Why? Because they really didn't believe in Jesus. Well, ask me this, okay? How do we know these people didn't really believe in Jesus? Ask me. How do we know?
How do we know?
Why are you asking me that? Just read the Bible. It tells you. Because at the very end of this chapter, they try to kill him. That's how we know. And this is how we know if you keep reading. At the very end of this chapter, these are the same people that are going to try to kill him, okay? So I think it's safe to say, what? They don't have real faith. And that's what it's saying. He's warning that. So he's going to need to describe what real faith looks like. He's going to need to know it's not about just walking down an aisle and having a one-time enjoyment. It's a real commitment. So this is what he's going to say here. He's going to say, if, this is going to be a third-class condition, at least open the possibility, you abide in my word. What does abide mean?
Stay there.
You stay there.
The
You
vine.
live there is exactly right. That's exactly what it means. It means taking up permanent residence. Very good. That's exactly what it means. Good job. It's an habitual remaining, a dwelling, an undergoing a permanent residence or resigning. In my word is going to mean his teachings, but it's also going to mean his person. Think in John 1. What else is he called in John 1? The Word. So you're going to reside in his teachings and in his person. Then and only then are you truly his disciples, which means the true marks of discipleship is staying power. It's staying power. It's staying power that allows Jesus to determine your reality. Now, what do you do with your money? What Jesus says. Who do you date? Who do you marry? Who Jesus says. What do you do with your career? Who Jesus says. What do you do with your life? What Jesus says. What is the meaning and purpose for your existence? What Jesus says. And if that's not the case, that's not the first place you go. If Jesus doesn't determine everything about you, then you're not his disciple. It's not this world. It's not popular cultural opinion. It's not even how you feel about things, Southern Baptist Convention. It's about Jesus and Jesus alone. This is what he says, and he goes on here in verse 32. Read verse 32 one more time, Jacynda, if you can find it there. And you will what?
And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
What is truth here? What is truth? Philosophical ideology? What is truth here?
What Jesus says.
Truth is what Jesus says, and it's true knowledge of God in a relational sense. Think about this, okay? This means this is not just acquiring abstract facts that mean nothing that you can take or leave. It's about acquiring the answer to the meaning of life, where you don't just know things about God, you literally know God himself through his Son. This is what it's saying, and the truth will set you free. What is this talking about? Salvation liberates you from the bondage and consequences of sin.
Amen.
Here's the problem with that. Most people have no clue what that means. It's a hypothetical idea on a piece of paper. They don't get it. We're going to see today why they should. All right, now with that being in mind, Jesus is going to come up and he's going to offer the state of freedom, which is going to imply what? A current state of slavery. But remember, he's talking to what? A group of Jews. All right? He's talking to those Jews who so-called believed. Okay? Well, here he challenges them right here, and they're going to vehemently deny that they are anybody's slave, and they're totally offended that Jesus can even begin to even think that they're anybody's slave. Go ahead and read verse 33 for us.
They answered him, "We are offspring of Abraham and have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free?"
All right, so what happens here? They reply, what?
And they've
Jesus
been
says, I'll give you
enslaved.
freedom. I'll give you freedom. They don't know they're enslaved. That's a problem, just like today. I'm just fine with my life. I'm doing just good. I'm successful. Obviously, God loves me because I'm doing good. And if I wasn't, if I was a bad person, God wouldn't have so much money in my bank account. You ask the average person, a new poll came out, and at least something along the lines of over 60% of so-called Christians think that their good works are going to determine their relationship with God and their access to heaven. I'm doing just fine. Obviously, God loves me. It's those people that are doing bad God doesn't love. Apparently, they never read the Bible. That's all there is to it. That's all I got to say about that, okay? Well, apparently, these Jews had a case of ancestral amnesia, okay? Because, they said they've been nobody's slaves, to which Jesus says, you better tell that Roman soldier over there, and let me give you a history lesson about the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Greeks. Now, this is what I would have done if I were Jesus. Thank God I'm not Jesus. I would have called down lightning right then on him. But this is, he doesn't really do this, and this is where a lot of people get confused about this. As humorous as that would have been, they're not talking about political subjugation when they're talking about slavery. Instead, what they're talking about is they're talking more along the lines of their spiritual privilege due to their connection, their genealogical connection to Abraham. Okay? Now, this is going to come out later. In the Greek, this is literally seed. Now, think back in Genesis 3. What happened? The seed of the woman. Right? If you're the seed of the woman, what? You're good to go. But, he's going to say in a minute, you're not the seed of the woman, you're the seed of the serpent. He's going to play off that in a minute, okay? But for now, what they're saying is, what you talking about, man? We are spiritually privileged due to our connection, but we got the blood of Abraham flowing through our veins, which in their mind, spiritually speaking, means they are no one's slaves, but they are sons and citizens of God's kingdom by their birthright, which means when it comes to their relationship with God, they are all good, and how dare you suggest otherwise? I'm good to go. How dare you think I'm a bad person? You're suggesting I'm doing something wrong. Well, I'm suggesting y'all did something wrong. We need a Savior. This is what it's saying right here. They're not going to get it, though. They are totally oblivious to the state of their genuine spiritual condition. Well, this leads Jesus to respond to verse 34 to 36, okay, when he makes clear that one's spiritual standing is not about a person's seed, genealogical connection, but about a person's sin, rebellion, and transgression against God. We're almost to Exodus. It's going to be exciting there. Read verse 34 to 36 for us.
Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The Son remains forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed."
So Jesus starts out in verse 34 by saying what? Truly, truly. Amen. What does that mean? You best listen. So he's about to say something important. It means listen. I got something important to say. Everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. What does that mean? You ever sinned before? Even once. Have you sinned once in your life? If you sinned even once, you're a slave to sin, and that sinning just once proves you're enslaved. And here's what he goes on to say. Because sin is not just a bad act, it's a power in your heart that makes you do bad acts. Which means you're not a sinner because you sin because by nature you are a sinner. Which by definition proves you are enslaved to an inner power that keeps you in a state of rebellion and isolation against God. People don't understand. What you mean God's my enemy? What you mean I'm going to a real hell? What you mean this is hypothetical? Not according to Jesus. Not according to Jesus. And then it says right here in verse 35 through 36, he goes on to speak about the fact that as the one and only unique Son, he has the authority to liberate from the tyranny of sin and offer genuine spiritual freedom. This is where it gets all mushy-mushy and talking about words, talking about philosophy, talking about paper. People can't really know. Who really cares? If this is your mentality on this, you don't belong to Jesus. Because here's the deal. Very few people in modern times seem to understand that they are literally currently enslaved or that they are literally had been rescued from slavery. Now, if you understand you've been rescued from slavery, what do you owe to the person that rescued you?
Everything.
Absolutely everything. This is what worship is all about. We don't come to worship to what Buddy Walken calls a liver quiver, to where we feel good for a second. We come to worship despite how we feel, to recognize the one that has rescued us.
Amen.
It is about recognizing him, not us feeling better. That's why if anybody ever tells me, I got to get my cup filled, I tell them, you need to remember the blood. Because the fact of the matter is, you're not here to get your cup filled, you're here to bow and either one who rescued you. Or you're not here for the right reason. This is what we're talking about at this point right here, okay? So many people, they do not understand that either they are currently literally enslaved or they have literally been rescued from slavery. That was the problem. That's a problem now, and that was a problem then. And this is where we're going to get to the Old Testament, because you know how many New Testament writers handle this, what they did? One of the biggest references to Old Testament events you see is what? The Exodus and the Reed Sea crossing. And the reason why this historical event itself is what's called a paradigm for Christian salvation. Now think about Christian salvation and think about what happens here. Okay? Put them together. Because here what happens is, when God's people were in bondage in a foreign land that is not their home. Where's your home? Where are you at right now? You're in this world. Where's your home? It's in heaven, okay? When God's people were oppressed by a greater force they couldn't overcome with their own power, what happened to you? You were oppressed by what? A greater force. Sin, Satan, this world system, a greater force. Could you do anything to rescue yourself? You could not. You were helpless and hopeless. Oppressed by a greater power. Where God's people escaped God's judgment by being covered by the blood of the Lamb, what happens to you? What happened then? What's Passover about? What do they look forward to? Well, the what? The blood of the Lamb protecting what? From judgment that comes, okay? When you escape certain death, when they escape certain death, because God defeated their enemy, is they passed through the waters of grace? What? Wait a minute, what happened? I thought we were talking about the Exodus. No, we're talking about something that pictures what happens to you in the New Testament. Exact same paradigm. This is how God works, all right? And then not only that, how they were ushered into a promised land, a land of promise, reaping the benefits of the work of another? What is that saying? The promised land, heaven. How do we get there? Someone else's work, Jesus. Now we look at the Old Testament like that was way back when. We're not connected with that. Those happen for historical reasons, to paint a picture, to teach us a theological lesson. We have to understand who we really are in order to truly understand what we truly owe God. This is what we're going to see happen right here. Put your shoes, turn over to Exodus 13 through 14. Put yourself in the shoes of these Israelites being rescued. Because this is not just their story, this is your story. Because it pictures the real spiritual accomplishments that God has achieved on your behalf. And just like them, did He rescue them just to be free for freedom's sake? No, He rescued them to be set apart, to worship, and to serve Him, to advance His truth. Just like you. You're rescued for a reason, not to do nothing. Amen. This is what we're seeing right here. This whole picture is about to be painted. I'll try to move swiftly, but do not get up and walk out. Exodus 13, 17 through 22. If you get up and walk out, I will call your name. Exodus 13, 17 through 22. All right? Go ahead and read that for us, Jacynda. Exodus 13, 17 through 22.
When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. But God led the people around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. And the people of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt, equipped for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones with you from here. And they moved on from Succoth and encamped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness.
Anybody likes history, that we got a mummy involved in this? We have a real-life mummy in here, guys. Anybody want to guess where? A real-life mummy is involved in this. Where? Joseph's bones. What do you think that was? He's coming as an Egyptian ruler. He has been mummified. So we got a real-life mummy right here. We better watch out for that guy. All right, now it starts in verse 17 right here. The reader, Moses is letting the reader know that once God freed the people, He didn't take them the fastest route to reach their destination. You know, just paint a picture for you too, by the way. But instead He opted for the longer route for two reasons. One, the Israelites weren't trained in war. True. But also they weren't trained in trusting God. You've got to learn how to trust God, but here's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is, one doesn't develop a genuine, trustworthy relationship with God by taking shortcuts. It's a crock pot, not a microwave. Understand that. He starts out with this lesson right here. This is your story. This is your spiritual story. Understand that. So in order for the Israelites to learn more about the God who just delivered them, he takes them in verse 18, the way of the wilderness towards the, in most English translations, say Red Sea. But based on the Hebrew, Yam Suf, anybody knows Hebrew, that means we're talking about some reeds. Okay? So more than likely this is the Reed Sea. Now this is divided. We don't know which one they crossed. This could be the Bitter Lakes. This could be one of the Gulfs. This could be the actual Red Sea. We're not quite sure. But the Hebrew is literally Reed Sea. We get Red Sea from the Septuagint, the Greek translation. But all the Hebrew text until much later prophets always read Reed Sea. All right, well, the text goes on to describe certain points here. So they went up out of the land of Egypt, equipped for battle. That's not the best translation. It has, well, I guess it kind of is if you understand what it means. It's not talking about weapons or being well armed. It's talking about the fact when they marched out of Egypt, did they sneak around? They walked out in plain sight. They walked out of Egypt via military formation in an orderly fashion where they didn't stampede or trip over one another. So they're starting out good, right? We're starting out good. Things are going good. We're doing good. We're walking along. We're getting along. Oh, don't let anything bad happen, though. Because that's the second we start questioning God and throw his plan right out the window. And that's what we're going to see happen here in a minute, okay? And then goes on to note how they take with them the bones of Joseph. This does two things. It renounces Egyptian religion, okay? Because you didn't move a mummy or you stop existing in the afterlife. So for you to move a mummy meant you didn't believe in Egyptian afterlife. So they're repudiating Egyptian religion. Not only that, it's reminding them of the promises made to the patriarchs. Finally, it's going to tell right here in this text how they made good time across the Sinai Peninsula until they reached Etham. And this is where they stopped and pitched their tents. So they made great time. They're doing good. Things are going great. Just like your early period in your walk with Christ. Things are going great at first. Oh, but that's not what it's about. Remember, I was cautious this week about saying that. You do go through the honeymoon period. But it's not about the honeymoon period. It's what? It's about that long-term marriage. And so we start out good. We start out great. We start off gravy. We ain't going to stay that way. We're about to have some rocky roads ahead of us. But go ahead and read for us verse 21 to 22 first off.
And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. Now
this is going to have to do with, this is what Jesus was looking towards him at the light of the world situation here. But also listen to Exodus 14:19 connected to it. We'll get more on this later, but read Exodus 14:19 as well real quick.
Then the angel of God, who was going before the host of Israel, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them.
Notice how the angel of Yahweh and the pillar of cloud do the exact same thing. Why is that? Because they're the exact same thing. They are the exact same thing. What the pillar of cloud and fire is a theophany. Okay? It's going to be a weird theophany we'll get to in a minute. But this is a visual manifestation of God. It's going to be connected to the angel of Yahweh, which is the pre-incarnate Christ. And its function is going to be to guide and protect the people of Israel here and through the wilderness, okay? So we've established its function and identity. That is made clear. Now here's the irony of the whole thing. What is not so obvious is how this miraculous pillar actually appeared in real historical time, which is ironic given it's named after the visual effects that it's supposed to look like. Here's why I say that, okay? Because we'll look more about this in verse 14, but for now, just know this. Just know this and keep it in mind. The way it's described right here, and this is a supernatural feat, but the way it's described, think about this. A big, bright, nighttime fire in the sky that is burning by itself. Do you think anybody might notice that?
Yes.
I mean, this is literally describing an ancient Near Eastern alien war machine. Don't you think somebody should notice that? But what's the problem? Absolutely nobody anywhere in the text ever notices it. And we'll see this more in a minute. So this is what you need to understand. What did it probably look like in real historical time? Because the one thing's for certain, this ancient Near Eastern alien war machine that's a big bright fire in the sky burning by itself is not noticed by the Egyptians nor the Israelites, which has led many to conclude that although it's got a divine cause, it more than likely has the appearance of some kind of natural phenomenon. Okay? Or at the very least, it's more subtle and less threatening than we might imagine. Now we'll get more on this and unpack it more later when we get to Exodus 14. And we're going to scoot on down to Exodus 14 verse 5 through 9. But in order to save time, I knew you'll be running out of time at this point. Let me just summarize Exodus 14, 1 through 4. just to lay this foundation. Because here's what's going to happen. God's going to reveal his plans to defeat the Egyptians. He's going to let you know he's in control the whole time. He's going to let you know what happens. He's going to let you know strategy. He's going to let you know what he's going to do to beat the great world power of the day. How powerful are the Egyptians at this time? They're the most powerful. They're the world power. How powerful are the Egyptian gods considered at this time? They're the most powerful. They are the world power. So if you beat the Egyptians and the Egyptians' gods based on ancient Near Eastern worldview, how's everybody going to see you? As something supreme. And this is why inevitably, do you remember throughout the ancient Near East what Yahweh is going to be known as by the other nations? A God of war. You know why? You don't mess with him. When he comes to fight, he don't lose. He just beat the mighty Egyptians. So what God is laying out right here is he's going to give his travel plans, and he's going to let it be. He's going to let Moses know these travel plans are going to intentionally entrap the Israelites against the sea. Which means when it happens, he's not going to go, "Oh, Moses, wait. I didn't see this coming. Don't panic, Moses. I'll think of something." This whole thing is his plan. He's leading them to get in trouble. So what? They can learn more about the God that has delivered them. This is all part of it, okay? This will in turn, according to Yahweh himself, this will entice Pharaoh and draw him out under the presumption that this inexperienced people have made a terrible tactical maneuver. Now remember, Pharaoh is a war general, and he's a very good war general. He knows what he's doing, and he says a foolish tactical maneuver. So what's he going to do on it? He's going to pounce. He's going to pounce. And in turn, they've left themselves no escape route. They can't get away. They're hemmed in against the sea. They can't go anywhere. And they're going to be easy prey for a formidable force such as the well-trained Egyptian army that doesn't lose. Okay? This is all part of the plan. But God reveals right here to Moses, all this is part of my plan. So the Egyptians will be utterly defeated. And they will recognize my superiority. They have enslaved and abused my people. They will not get away with it. Amen. This is what Yahweh says right here. You belong to him. He's got your back. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. This is what we're seeing happen right here. Now read verses 5 through 9 for us.
When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed toward the people. And they said, "What is this we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" So he made ready his chariot and took his army with him, and took 600 chosen chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, and his horsemen, and his army, and overtook them encamped at the sea by Pi-haroth in the front of Baal-Zephon.
Very good pronunciation, by the way. Okay, the section starts in verse 5 with Pharaoh receiving a report from his mounted troops. This is, in Egyptian time, what they would do is they would send mounted troops to shadow. Anybody military strategic in here? What does that mean? You stay far enough away so you can kind of watch what's happening, and then you come back and report what's going on. Okay? So these mounted troops have come back and they've reported that the people of Israel are rapidly moving out of Egyptian territory. And Pharaoh, there's no evidence they plan on returning. Remember, Pharaoh's mind what? He thought they were coming back in 3 days after worshiping. And although that became clear eventually that wasn't the case, he still is stupid and thinks this is what's going to happen because they can't go anywhere. They're not going to leave me. Well, apparently once he does realize he is what? He's just lost his cheap labor force. How's that going to sit with him? Not too well. I've got a lot of pyramids to build, and I've got a lot of other things to build. And I got a lot of my soldiers got to go to war. We got to have these people to build. I'm not happy about this, okay? So he's not happy, and the text even hints at, or straight up says, he's going to have a divinely caused abrupt change of attitude, and inevitably he's going to put together 600 of his elite chariots. In the ancient Near East, these are weapons of mass destruction. These are the greatest weapons of mass destruction in the ancient Near East. And he's got, right here, his elite bodyguard forces, at least 600, and whatever other chariots he can muster up. And he does what? He chases after the recently freed and militarily inexperienced Israelites. Okay? Is all this going to take God by surprise? No, this is a big problem heading the way of his newly converted people. Why is that? They need to learn more about the God who has delivered them. How do you learn about that God who's delivered you? You get put in a situation you can't handle, but he can. How's your faith real? the same way you know a raincoat works. You put it in the rain. This is how faith works. You get put in the rain. All right, so they got a 6-day lead. I mean, they're going good. And as verse 8 describes here, they're actually slowly marching along. Anybody slow drivers? I know Miss June's not, but she's not here, so I can't say anything about her. Anybody slow driver here? You just kind of do. You're going along. It's apparently all the people like to drive out on 17. It's those people. When you're trying to get somewhere, it's those people. They just get out for a Sunday drive when you're in a hurry. Yeah, those people, okay? Well, this is the Israelites. They're just marching along blissfully unaware, and it really actually the text should be a little cocky as well, blissfully unaware of the military monster pursuing them. When in verse 9, out of nowhere, the military monster catches up and in turn causes everyone who is having a good old time all of a sudden to what? Be utterly frenzied and go, ah! This is what happens here. They utterly have a panic attack. It's verse 10 through 12 describes for us. Go ahead and read that for us.
When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we had said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die out here in the wilderness." So
verse 10, what it does is it picks the Israelites. They're looking over the horizon. Maybe there's a scout out there, but they're looking, and all of a sudden, they see the arrival of the Egyptian forces. They see the troops at a distance, but there's a problem. It's too late, they can't go anywhere, because Egypt's in front, and what's behind? A big body of water. So they're in trouble at this point. They're hemmed in. And so how do they react? They react with faith. They act with prayer. They are utterly terrified. They are afraid. So they do the one and only thing that you can do when you're utterly terrified and afraid. You throw a temper tantrum and you blame somebody else for your problems. You know, that's what they do right here. They throw a temper tantrum and they blame Moses for the predicament. And they go, "Hey, dummy, you could have done a worse job if you tried to kill us." And that's what they you can translate that way in the Hebrew. You have literally brought us out here to die because you're a dummy. And that's what they're basically saying right here. So Moses does not have the best approval rating at this point. All right? So Moses needs to give a speech and get morale going, right? Let's see what Moses does right here. Read verse 13 to 14.
And Moses said to the people, "Fear not. Stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work out for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent."
Well, the Hebrew, this is a lot more funny, honestly. Silence is going to be the key here. In the English, this kind of appears like he's saying, "Calm down, they're there, it'll be okay." In the Hebrew, that's not what he's saying. He's not saying calm down, and he's not getting a comforting thought. Instead, he's angrily denouncing them. And he's telling them, which I guess the best way to say it, a very impatient tone. Maybe if you're a kid, you told them 10 times to shove in the back seat, and you finally turn around and start waylaying on them. This is what Moses has done. He's told the kids to shove 10 times. They won't, so he turns around and starts waylaying on them. Fear not, which means stop panicking and get a hold of yourself, for crying out loud. Stand firm, which literally in the Hebrew means cease talking strongly. Which, what do you think that should be translated as?
Shut up.
Shut up! You know, I'm tired of hearing your voice. Your voice is making me nauseous. Okay? And then he says, "See the salvation of the Lord," which means God has got this. You know, basically, you do your part, which is stop whining. God will do his, which is take care of that opposing obstacle in front of you that's about to destroy you. Whose life is that? That's ours. Stop whining. God's got this. Give it to him. He put you in this situation to grow you so you would know him. It didn't take him by surprise. Just like them. That's what he's saying right here. Your job is to stop whining. His job is to take care of the area obstacle in front of you. Think you can do that? Think maybe you can shut up just for a second and trust God like for a minute? This is what Moses said, the great motivation speaker of Moses. And we need more of these guys. That's what we need right here. All right, now go ahead and read verses 15 through 18.
The Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they shall go in after them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his hosts, his chariots and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen."
Now this is actually this kind of inside conversation that switches between Moses and God. And which verse 15 might sound weird because we just switched modes. And what actually happens is Moses, after giving that speech, is a little freaked out. It's just like your leaders and your public speakers and the people in control. Their job is to go, calm down, calm down. And inside, you know what they're doing? God, you got to do something, God. What are you going to do, God? Because that's the job of a leader. And this is what Moses does right here. He freaks out for a minute. So God reassures him and lets him know that in the face of this seemingly hopeless situation, God is going to certainly alleviate the problem, and He's going to do something totally unexpected. He's going to do something no one saw coming. And He's going to do something in a way that is going to give Him all the glory. It's all part of His plan. You can't see it coming because it don't happen yet. And it seems impossible to you, but it's not impossible to the God you serve. This is our story. This is their story. Now, I'm going to start with activity, Angela. We are almost done. We'll move along with this. Read for us Exodus 14, 19 through 20.
Then the angel of God, who was going before the host of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other all night. All
right, so what we've got here, the guiding cloud becomes a blocking cloud. So we got the angel of the Lord moving, the cloud moves, you see all that. And it's going to divide the Israelites from the Egyptians, and it's going to prevent access from each other. Now, I got a long quote here, but I'll explain it like this. Does anybody notice that thing in this verse right here? Does the Egyptians go, wow, there's a big fire in the sky. It looks like Scarecrow from Batman is just giving me some gas poison here because I'm terrified of this thing. Does anybody do that? Do they notice this thing at all? Or do the Israelites go, hey, big fire in the sky, get them. We're courageous now. That fire in the sky's got them. Does anybody notice it? What is that suggesting? That is not noticeable. It's there. They just can't understand that it's there. It somehow is going to have the appearance of a more natural phenomenon, although it's being divinely used. Now, I love Cecil B. DeMille's, and thank God, one of the best first things ever. But the big fiery tornado, as much as I like the idea, based on how they're reacting right here, it probably wasn't that. I have no idea what it is, but it's still God doing it. God's going to take, even in a minute, He's going to take the natural and make it supernatural because He can control it. Guys, it rains all the time. But if you can make it rain, it's a miracle. Okay? That's what we see in the Bible. It's one of these things that goes right here. We don't quite understand it, but it's what's going on. Okay? So it's going to block them. And here's what happens in verse 21 through 22. And I'll have to break this down for you. Kind of read a little bit. Go ahead and read verse 21 and 22. We're almost done.
Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left.
So 4 points quickly. Moses stretches out his hand. Based on verse 16, the staff is there. Anytime you see him stretch out his hand in Exodus, the staff is there anyway. He's going to stretch it over the waters. Why does he do that? It's what? It's a visible motion that signals the actions of what? An invisible God. So you know that it's God about to do it. I'm signaling with my staff. God's about to do this, okay? Then Yahweh's going to send what? A strong, sustained east wind. And it's going to what? Blow all night. So we think He puts it out there and all of a sudden it crosses. What happens? This strong, sustained wind is going to come in and form a chasm and blow all night. And what it does when it blows all night, God using this natural phenomenon to accomplish supernatural things, it takes the sea and it parts it left and right where you got two large walls of water sitting right here. At the low estimates are 25 to 35 foot of water. That's low estimates. It's something along the lines of city-sized walls right here, okay? So we've got these two walls of water. And here comes the other miracle that often gets missed. And the people crossed on what? Dry ground. They don't work that way. I'm sorry, it's still mushy. It can rain here, and the next day it's still really mushy, right? And we know it's going to be mushy, because in a minute, the chariots are about to get all messed up with the Egyptians. But when the Israelites go by, it's what? It's dry. So not only is it part, but the ground is dry. Another miracle itself. So then we got right here the long section, God dealing with the Egyptians. We are almost through verse 23 through 29.
The Egyptians pursued and went in after them in the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning watch, the Lord, in the pillar of fire and of cloud, looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels so they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, And the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, the Lord threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. Of all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea, not one of them remained. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left.
So what we've got here, I've got to break all this down. The wind has blown all night, okay? The pillars doing what? Is keeping the Israelites from the Egyptians. Now, the Egyptians know something is going on, but the Israelites are crossing, and the Egyptians are trying to somehow they can't, and they're getting really frustrated at their inability to attack this much weaker prey. They are a lion with a maned deer. And what does that lion want to do to that deer? It just wants to that's all it's thinking about is getting that deer. That's what the Egyptians are seeing right now. And they are just ready to fight. They are frustrated with their inability to eat that deer they want, and they're ready to join the battle, and they are ready to throw caution to the wind. Which means what? They are ready to charge in the second they get to charge in. And so they're ready to throw caution to the wind, and as soon as the pillar moves, they do what? They throw caution to the wind, and they charge in without evaluating the situation. That's going to be a problem, because chariots need certain terrain to be able to move right on. And this terrain is not going to be right for a chariot. You don't want wet, soft terrain. It's not going to work that way, okay? So then all of a sudden it depicts Yahweh is looking down on them, throwing them into a confusion. Now this is where it gets unexplained. We don't know what happens. In an unexplained manner, all of a sudden his divine presence becomes obvious to them. Somehow in the middle of being here with walls of water, they realize that there's God right there. And they freak out. They are utterly terrified, okay? Anybody know anything about chariots, you've got to stay in a straight, tight formation. What happens when everybody starts veering off and going in different directions and you're already hemmed in to a tight place? It's utter chaos. And so what's going to happen is the wheels could possibly break off. It's even possible ivy starts growing on the wheels. But utter chaos and their panic states ensues. And as the Egyptians try to escape, all that happens is their chariots run into each other. And once their chariots run into each other, what happens? No one goes absolutely anywhere. And in the midst of this chaos, blowing their chance to escape, and everyone's out. It's in the midst of this, Yahweh tells Moses, get your staff out again, close the sea, and the sea closes and drowns all the threshing war horses and all the terrified soldiers in the deep waters. You see how that works? God had it planned that way the whole time. That's all humanly impossible. But it was all meant to be a lesson for the Israelites to learn about the God they served.
Amen.
They were in a situation that was bigger than them, but it wasn't bigger than their God. And he made sure they understood that. This is where it's going to start. I'm just going to close out right here in verse 30 through 31.
Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and his servant Moses.
Now let me ask you something. How thankful should the Israelites have been right there?
Very, very good.
How thankful. I mean, because God had just intervened in an amazing way and miraculously rescued them from an outside monstrous force that only wanted to do them harm and enslave them. What could they have done without God's intervention? What kind of predicament they would have been in? Well, let me ask you something. How thankful should you be when God does the same for you? Because what this is a story about is you being enslaved to sin. An outside monstrous force that only wants to do you harm. Yet you, if you have faith in Jesus, have been rescued. This is what we're celebrating, we're talking about when it comes to redemption. We're talking about our rescue from being enslaved, where we recognize where we be without God, where we understand where we are because of God, and we truly understand where we're going with God. And all of this looks back to who? The one who has freed us from our bondage to sin and death. And this is why it's worthy. If you don't understand that you've been enslaved and you've been free, then you won't understand the God you serve. And you won't give it all to him because he is truly worthy. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we love you. We thank you. Lord, we owe you everything. Understanding our true enslavement to sin and understanding just like the Israelites, you have freed us from that enslavement. Master, we bow a knee to you. We owe you everything. Let us remember, Lord. Let us remember who you are. Let us remember the greatness of the God we serve.
Yes.
And let us remember everything we owe him. Jesus, we love you. For your name we pray, Master. Amen.
Amen.